Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, the podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne, the best friend of Leighton Flowers, and the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, elder candidate at Redeemer Fellowship.
I had to get a new best friend.
Why is that? Well, no, that can't be it.
I had to get a new best friend.
No.
And I figured, well, who would be as abusive to me as you are? And the closest I could come up with is Leighton Flowers.
So my question is this: why do you feel the need to find a new best friend? I'm actually kind of hurt by that.
Oh, please.
Please what?
Yeah.
Please
hey,
what?
Hey, man. Hey, Jimmy.
What?
What'd you do last night?
It's none of your business.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's kind of everybody's business because I saw some photos on the Instagram.
All right.
So why don't you share to me? Not only did you go on a double date with Steve.
Yeah, Steve and his wife. Yeah.
Yeah. And not me. I wasn't invited.
No, because you know it would have been fives a crowd.
So I didn't get invited.
Now if Jen was in town, then yes, we would have invited you guys.
And then
or we would have invited Jen.
And then you went to a burlesque show? What was that?
All right, you know what?
About?
No. Let's give context here.
Yeah, okay. Please give me context that will justify you went to a burlesque show.
We accidentally walked into a burlesque show.
Oh, sure, yes.
I got text to you saying, hey, I accidentally walked into
I got the tag, like, hey, I walked into it. And I'm like, how do you accidentally walk into something like that?
Okay. So, the McCoys are now in town.
Yeah.
Michelle and I have been wanting to go out on a double date with them. Finally, it worked last night. And I was like, hey, I'm going to take a look. I'm going to go take a look, find, this new restaurant. It's only been 3 months. It's above the Arcada, this historic theater in St. Charles.
Right.
So we went upstairs, or we took the elevator up. There's you got to find the password.
There's a password?
Once you're in the elevator, you got to look and try to find the password.
It's like an escape room. I don't want to do that.
Kind of. And then so you get up on the third floor, you get off, and you're just in this really nice, it's really decorated well, and you have to give the password to this kid. And then he opens up the bookcase. There's a secret door behind the bookcase that opens up into this nice
you sent that
lounge.
video. That's pretty cool.
So anyways, we got there at 5-something, realizing that there's this show with the guy that played Kojak, his daughter.
Telly Savalas.
Yeah. Her name is Ariana Savalas, yeah. And so...
Ariana, go ahead.
And so...
Continue.
So we're sitting there, and, well, we had such a great time. We were there for about
having
three
an early
hours.
dinner, just chilling.
Yeah, and then it was probably the best double date Michelle and I have ever been on.
That's hurtful.
So then all of a sudden, the show begins.
Now hang on a second. So you're at this new speakeasy, which that sounds kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Sorry, it was a speakeasy.
Yeah, I get it. Books and all that stuff. So
1920s, everyone's dressed up.
Yeah, so you're
except the owner.
So you're there, and you're speaking. It's kind of cool having cocktails and food and all that stuff.
Yeah, great time, great salmon.
And there's a show coming up.
Yep.
All right.
Well,
so you knew there was a show, and you wanted to stick around for the show.
No. I had heard there was going to be a show.
So you knew.
But I had thought, hey, we go at 5-something. We'll be out way before the show because ain't no way we're going to hang out with the McCoys for 3 hours.
So why? What made you want to stay for this particular show?
No, we didn't want to stay for the show.
Was it the name of the group?
We did not want to stay.
What was the name of the group, Jimmy?
It was the Menage a Tour.
Mm-hmm. That might have been a giveaway right there, Jimmy. That's kind of that's what they call a tell.
No. But we thought we'd be long gone. But because we're having such a great time with the McCoys,
you thought, let's stay and look and see what.
No. So, anyways, it started. At that point, it was a little awkward to get up and go. That something happened to the show.
So wait, what kind of show is this? So it's
no one cares about this. No one cares about this.
People are we've got to wrap it up. We'll wrap it up here. So you're there, and all I know is I got a picture sent to me with some dude with his shirt off.
Dudes, 2 guys.
Yeah, with suspenders and leather and
yeah.
It was super.
No, don't.
Yeah, it was definitely. It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I'm trying to think of what word I could say.
No,
that
you can't
ruffle the least amount of feathers.
Yeah. But anyways,
so then you were enjoying the show.
Well, actually, we were enjoying that. I know this sounds really bad. We were enjoying that everybody else was actually enjoying or taking it seriously. Everyone around us was getting annoyed. People kept looking at us because we couldn't stop laughing because they were taking the show so serious. Like, oh, this is so great. And her jokes were actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
She had a lot of innuendos.
That's like reading Playboy for the articles. That's what that is. I feel like no. In all seriousness, I know that that Jimmy and Scott and Steve and everybody that they were taken by surprise and they got out of there before.
So yeah, we got out of there, went across the river to McNally's.
You ran across the river
to McNally's, where we had a couple more drinks and finished we watched the Cubs game. The end of it, they won.
Good. I bet the girls loved that.
Yeah, it was a great time. So all in all, it was about 6 hours of a date night. And I mean, obviously, Joe, you realize that no matter what happens, I'm still your best friend. So we're good.
I like how you put that. That's very, very telling.
Well, I just want to be truthful.
All right. So what are we going to talk about today? We're sitting on the back porch,
Yep.
man. We're in the shade because it's like 91 degrees right now. And but we got cigars. We're chilling.
Yep.
And it's been busy for you. You're preaching tomorrow.
Preaching
at Redeemer.
tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm off.
I thought you were about
schedule.
to say I'm not looking forward to it.
No. I am looking forward to it. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to critique you. But we're sitting here, and we decided we're going to talk about something because we've gotten a lot of requests for it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about self-defense. When is violence justified?
When is violence fun?
No,
fun.
Justified.
Yeah,
I think justified.
Just as fun as it could possibly be.
Just as fun. That's pretty good. That was really good.
Yeah, is violence ever justified? When are we supposed to defend ourselves? In fact, we got an email. Let me read this.
All right, read the email.
All right,
Maybe don't say the name.
I won't say the name. I'm almost prepared for this. Here we go. D&D.
All right, so Barton Smith says what?
Is that his name? No, it's not.
No, of course not. I would say his name.
All right. So here we go. Boom. He's a police officer.
All right. Ed
Hey, guys.
Stetzer says what?
No, he says, hey, guys, my name is blank, and I've been listening to y'all for about a year now. First, let me say what a great encouragement you have been in my walk with Christ, and specifically hashing out some of the hard questions I've struggled with about Reformed theology. God has used you, too, to open my eyes to the immensity of his sovereignty and grace, and I'm thankful for that more than words can say. Well, thank you.
That was very kind, man.
For listening. My main question is the following. I'm a police officer in Colorado, and I've really been thinking a lot through the biblical side of possibly having to take someone's life in an act of self-defense or defending a third person's life. What does the Bible say about this idea of self-defense, whether lethal or non-lethal? What are some resources I can delve into for more understanding? Thanks in advance. All right, so...
And man, he's not the only one. I know we've received other from individuals that are... soldiers, yeah, that they're enlisted and they're heading over, and so they asked, hey, can you give some thoughts and on
and
this
then just
subject?
gun nuts. We've had like gun guys.
Yeah, I think so. We've just had gun nuts. Yeah, but I'm gonna focus on these men and women that
who have the question,
and especially because it's not just that they're a gun nut. It's wait a second, this is a very real possibility for me that I must wrestle with.
Right. Okay, so let's just start with this, since we're talking about violence. And again, we haven't really discussed this, but have you ever experienced violence that you feel like you could talk about? Growing up, kid, adult, whatever.
I mean, I used to get in fights.
Okay.
Outside Haynes Middle School.
Outside what?
Haynes Middle School. Haynes.
Middle school fights don't count as violence.
Well, you know what? I was rocking. I was king of that yard until Mark Estrada showed up and put me in my place.
Oh, yeah. Mark Estrada showed you the way, huh?
Oh, he showed me the way to the ground.
So middle school fights, but never any scary violence.
Nah. I had a few fights in high school, but they were not. They were always against the Dilly J.
What? Oh,
Jake Diliberto.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
We call him Jake the Snake.
Okay. That's original.
Yeah, it really was.
I think that I know when I was really little, I got picked on a lot and I got beat up a lot, but in the sense that little kids got beat up back then, whereas you might get punched or pushed down or whatever. They take your bike and smash it with sledgehammers, so it's never fixable.
Wait, no, I've never had that happen to me.
I had that happen. And I got my first black eye by Dan Dixon in 5th grade.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was an athlete, so I felt like that was okay then. It wasn't like some little kid beating me up.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay,
Dan
well,
Dixon.
you know what? I'm going to lose this fight 9 times out of 10.
It wasn't even a fight. We were just play wrestling, but I must have done something wrong, and he just popped me a good one. I got it.
So it was a friend.
Yeah.
That got
Not really a friend either, but, So anyways, I would say this, though, about my experience of violence and self-defense. I got picked on a lot, probably because I had a smart mouth. half of the time, and half time just because kids can be bullies. And I got
Oh yeah,
beat up.
I'm sure people didn't have any, reasonable cause to come at you, Joe.
I tell you what, starting in third grade, they didn't. When I moved here and I was the new kid, I was just the target.
I'm just saying, I can understand
kid.
like Eli. Like if Eli was getting beat up, I'm like, oh, I don't know why. That makes no sense. But you, I'm like, oh, well, I could see it.
Maybe I am the way that I am because of all that, nonsense I.
Oh, so society made you that way?
Yeah, it's right, man. Don't blame me for who I am. My neighborhood made me.
Yeah, thanks, society.
And so what happened in my case was I got tired of that, and in high school, as I grew up, my dad taught me how to throw punches and do a little bit of boxing, and then in high school, I learned how to fight, and all that stuff ended. I didn't get picked on anymore, and I only got in fights if I wanted to, and I kind of liked violence until I became a Christian, and I think as any healthy person who's following Jesus, I think none of us want to be violent. We want to be as nonviolent as possible.
We might want to be, but we still enjoy violence to a degree.
Well, it depends on what you mean by violence. I mean, if you mean violence,
sporting event, movies, and TV shows,
that's a whole nother can of worms. We can actually get into that in the other episode we might record today if we have time.
All right.
So, but in terms of real violence, where
actual real violence,
somebody's getting attacked, something like that. We're not about that. So let's just talk big picture here before we get into what the Bible has to say. When you're thinking about, anyway, I wanted us to talk about backgrounds because I wanted everybody to know that
Joe got beat up a lot.
One of us was picked on and beat up a lot. One of us wasn't, and we've had different experiences, and we recognize that our view of violence has changed over the years, especially as we follow Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Good job.
So when you think about self-defense in general,
mm-hmm.
would you say you're a pacifist, you're against any form of violence, or do you think that self-defense has a place in the life of a follower of Jesus?
I believe that self-defense has a place in the life of a follower. I think we all have the right to live, and we all have the right to defend ourselves from attack, right? So when we are being, when violence is coming our way, I do think, I do think we should be able to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here as, and let Joe, like you guys hear it all the time on the podcast. Joe verbally attacks me.
Yeah.
And so I need to defend myself against his verbal attacks.
With your verbal jujitsu.
Exactly.
It doesn't get physical, though.
No.
Because we're not a bunch of leftist snowflakes who feel that words are actual violence.
Yeah.
Because words are not actual violence.
That's right. But words mean things, Joe.
Yes,
okay?
they do.
They do.
Yeah.
Got it?
Get it?
Got it.
Good.
Yeah, good. But I do think we have a right to defend ourselves.
Yeah, man, I think that's good. I think that that's an idea that a lot of people argue. From this position, they argue that this is a philosophical idea or something that comes out of natural theology, that we do have the right to protect this life that God has given us, that we're to steward it in such a way that it isn't taken by the unrighteous. So I think that's very fair.
So then what about I could hear some pacifists saying, well, Jesus' words turn the other cheek.
Yeah, and we'll get into a couple of passages of Scripture that help us to think through this, but that passage in particular, pretty much every scholar that I've read on that passage says that in that context, Jesus is saying when you are insulted, that you do not return the insult. And so, in other words, you learn to suffer well. Jesus is not speaking about life and death in that situation.
Yeah.
He may be speaking about a situation where, as a follower, you're being persecuted, and you do not return evil with evil. And the whole idea of, being struck on the right cheek, in general, that means that you're not catching a right straight or a right hook from your opponent, which would hit you on the left cheek. To get struck on the right cheek from your opponent, it would have to be either a backhand from the right hand of that opponent, or they'd have to be a southpaw and be striking with their left.
Yeah.
So more than likely, scholars say Jesus is dealing with insults there and not real violence. So I'm not. In fact, I would say that people that would say we should never use violence not only argues against what you're saying, Jimmy, but I think it also goes against the principle that we see in Scripture that we not only have the right to defend ourselves, but we have the responsibility to defend others.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
You know, I think the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder, we always look at the commands of God as being negative and positive, right? Do not murder, that's the negative, so what is the positive, right? So we do no harm in one sense, but we seek to protect life, to see life flourish.
Don't let harm come to others.
Yeah. So I think that's another part of it. When I think of self-defense, I'm thinking we have the right to defend ourselves, and I think we have the responsibility. One of the things that I want my kids to know and to believe and to live by is I want them to be willing and able to defend themselves and other people.
Yeah.
So willing, right? They're willing to step in, but they're also able. So if you're willing and unable, you're not going to do any good. And if you're able but unwilling, you're not going to do any good.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think matters in this conversation, that we're not just about ourselves, that we are about ourselves and defending ourselves, but we're also looking when the need arises to protect others from harm.
So then I think also then realizing that sometimes force is required to stop violence, right? So like when we're talking about defending ourselves and defending others, that then also means we have to exert some sort of force. Right.
And I know like there's some new strategies now to help women who are being attacked, potential rape. They say, well, what you can do is to defend yourself, you can pee your pants or make yourself vomit or start picking your nose. They're actually suggesting this to girls on college campuses. If you're about to get raped, this guy's going to attack you, do these things and he'll get grossed out and go away. But the reality is, first of all, that's dumb. But the reality is that dangerous people, violent people, sometimes have to be met with violence in order to get them to stop. It's you can blow a rape whistle, and sometimes people will come to your aid. Other times, people will just turn the other way. They don't really care.
They don't want to get involved for some reason or another. I can't understand. I can't understand why. I don't want to assume motives behind that.
Well, there's something gross that's happened, and I don't know if it was this way with you, Jimmy, because I'm a little older than you.
A lot older than me.
Okay, I'm a lot older than you. But when I was in high school, if two girls started scrapping for real, the guys pulled them apart. They wouldn't let them go. Okay, so Jimmy says no, not in his context. But all I know is, man, YouTube generation, all the dudes stand around and cheer the girls on.
Egg them on, yeah.
What is this gross? So there is an aspect of violence in our culture that has been received very warmly. And so some people seem to like it as something to watch, but not
for entertainment.
Yeah. So you've got that end of it, but when it's serious and somebody's in trouble, nobody really wants to step in and to stop it. At least it feels that way. So yeah, that stuff troubles me. The idea that so you see somebody getting beaten to death, or you see somebody getting raped, and what's your course of action? Are you going to step in and help or not? And if you're going to step in and help, that very well might, it doesn't always, it might require force. And I think that's justified.
And I think so. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people, like you mentioned before, some people must be willing and able to do these things. And so I think they're unwilling to at that point. And in my head, it's like, well, then going back to the second point you made, well, then where's your heart to protect others?
Yeah.
To defend the defenseless in the situation, right? Just turning around and walking away just doesn't, and you know what? And I think it's even going along these lines. What about, I think, the non-violent confrontations that can become violent?
Yeah.
Do you know, like I'm thinking of situations like if you see, a couple fighting, right? And a guy, I'm just saying the male is just yelling and screaming and belligerent to step in, right? Or I see a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of those YouTube videos or those social experiments.
All right. What would you do?
What would you do? But the social experiment being like it's a restaurant full of people.
Right.
And there's these actors that go in, and, if it was a pretty white girl, all of a sudden people step in and help. Yep. But if it's a minority, then
people let it go.
People just let it go.
Yeah. That's stuff that Man, it's frustrating. And I want to. I feel like I want to see every once in a while you see somebody step up, but not enough. There's a great video I've seen where they do an experiment like that, where these kids are bullying another kid and just saying mean things to him, like just really tearing him apart. You're stupid. You're smelly. And the adults are like, "Hey, you knock it off." Like they're like telling these kids to knock it off. I like that, but not enough of that. And I think, listen, I don't think. Listen, violence isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it's a necessary thing. It's always a scary thing, and it's okay to be scared. But I think the idea that we would let someone really get into harm's way and just walk away from that, we get something we'd have to live with and repent of. And I don't know. I don't think there's a place for that for the Christian. I think the Christian knows deliverance, knows protection from the Lord, and understands the will of God enough that we really ought to be involved in stopping that.
I agree, and I think we both, as we move forward with what does the Bible say about justified violence, I think, Joe, I think you and I would agree that violence is kind of a last resort.
Yeah.
Right? It's not something we just go head first into.
Right.
Like it's not the first act. You try other means first, but sometimes it escalates so quickly, and the situation deems it necessary to respond forcefully, quickly, and efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. I don't remember where I heard it first, but I heard it a while ago, dangerous on demand. And but it's the idea that we live peaceful lives. Like the scripture says, live at peace with all men as much as is possible. Do that. It's not always possible, but as much as is possible, live at peace with all men. But sometimes it is required. And I like what you're saying, and I totally agree. It's a last resort.
Yeah.
It's never the first option. If that's your first option, there are some other sin issues going on in the heart, right? Whether that's rage and anger and pride or whatever, there's something else going on there that needs to be addressed, some deeper issues.
Absolutely.
That should really give you concern. Now, you mentioned, what does the scripture say about it? Now, it's the easy thing to say is, okay, well, we can all look in the Bible and see that God commands violence at times, right? Old Testament, conquering Canaan, Israel acting as a vehicle of judgment for God against the Canaanites, whatever. But there are a couple of passages that people usually look at to help them think through self-defense and justified violence. Do you want to take the Old Testament one or the New Testament one, Jimmy?
Well, I'll look at the Old Testament since we're there. Exodus 22, verses 2 and 3. If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him. But if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. So, like, the idea here is, like, it's in the middle of the night. You're confused. You're disoriented. Like, you don't know what's happening. And someone, I think the assumption here is someone is intending to do you harm. Like, they're coming in.
They just broke into your house.
They broke into your house while you're sleeping.
Right.
So it's kind of like this. There's this justified violence here.
Yeah, and this is in the context of laws being given to Israel about retributive justice and making amends and all of that. And so we've got these two scenarios here, right? Thief breaks in at night. You can't really assess him or everything. If it doesn't say you're commanded to strike him dead.
No.
But if you defend yourself and he dies, you're okay. You're in the clear. But if the sun has risen on him and if he does come to justice, then he is going to pay for breaking in. He's gonna make amends. So I think it's pretty fair to say that God, at the very least, the principle here allows for self-defense to protect yourself, and violence to the end, even if this guy dies. I think that's pretty clear. The other passage is Luke 22, verses 35 and 36, when Jesus says, "When I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything?" And the disciples say, "Nothing." And he said to them, "But now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack, and let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one." So Jesus says, get armed. Now, some people...
He said, go get that Glock.
That's what it is, Glock 19. Go Glock 17, a little big.
It's a little big.
Glock
The 19,
yeah.
the 17's too big for you. Your
Well, yeah.
small little hands.
I got baby hands.
Too much recoil.
No, that's not the problem. I'm all man, baby. My wife could shoot that. Anyway, so Jesus says, all right, back when we were doing our thing here, before the crucifixion, before the resurrection, you were to take nothing. But now, make sure you have your money bag, your knapsack, and take a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he saying this? I mean, Jesus says, listen, the mission of the church now is going to explode across the world, and you're going to need resources. This is going to be your life. And so as you go, right, you're going to need money, you're going to need supplies, and you're going to need to defend yourself.
Yeah.
It's the only way to interpret that. You can't, I know you can, I mean, people do it. I don't see how someone can interpret sword to be a metaphor of the word.
But then the other things are not.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Oh, no, take your money bag and your knapsack and take your sword. But I don't mean the sword.
Yeah, he means Bible.
To me, that is just bad. That's a bad way of looking at this passage. I don't think it's fair. So the question is why would Jesus tell missionaries to take a sword? After everything that he said about, persecution and turning the other cheek and blessing
and how he lived.
Yep. So why would he tell them to take a sword? I think it's fair to say that this was a basic principle that all men generally live by, and women, that we have the right to defend ourselves from violence, from the robbers, from the people that would fall upon us as we're traveling.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jesus isn't saying, hey, if you go and you preach the gospel and somebody throws a rock at your head, go ahead and pull out your sword and chop their head off.
No, I don't think that's what he said.
Yeah. He's saying, but you can, and it's a good idea for you to arm yourself, to protect yourself. And I think the implication here is that you should be willing and able to protect yourself and others as you are traveling. I don't think that that's a stretch. I think that's a pretty fair, simple assessment of the passage, don't you?
No, absolutely. But, we joked about the Glock and everything, and, Jesus talks about a sword, but what about guns? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Well, even that discussion today about the Second Amendment and stuff, right? Like when the fathers couldn't have envisioned the type of weapons we have now, right? Like,
which is actually believe it or not, at the time that the Second Amendment was written, there were a bunch of guns that were being developed that people were familiar with that shot multiple rounds. They just weren't super common yet.
Joe the historian.
Yeah, right. So, okay, so let's just talk about guns for a second. Most people are okay with some gun use, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people enjoy hunting or even like just like sports, like what is it, marksmanship, that kind of stuff.
Like, most people don't have a problem with
shooting,
that, right? Skeet shooting, whatever. But when it comes to self-defense, some people get really nervous. There's a lot of bad information out there and misinformation because it's become such a politicized issue. That people are constantly playing games with stats and numbers, and it happens on both sides. So what I would say is, and what I'm going to say is particularly relevant to the American context.
All right,
we're Americans.
Yep.
We live here. And when our country began, the Constitution, and specifically the Bill of Rights, and then more specifically the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights, guarantees, it affirms the right of the people to bear arms. And I'm not going to it's not an episode on the Second Amendment, so I'm not going to break it all down for you guys and get into militia and all of that stuff. But let's just say that the normal reading in that context, right, in the 18th century, people reading that would understand it to mean that the people can and should bear arms, have the right to carry a gun on their person and in their home. And this was for the purpose of defense from both foreign enemies, domestic enemies.
Yeah.
And it really, honestly, it was to ensure that they couldn't be oppressed by a tyrannical government. Because one of the things that tyrannical governments always do is they take away the firearms of the people. They take away their weapons, and now they're defenseless, and then they start
then they can have their
steamrolling.
way. Yeah.
So that's so I'm coming from this perspective as an American. who does have guns, who enjoys guns, and takes it very seriously. My wife and I have taken classes, put in hours of study. We enjoy going to the range. We take it very seriously. And when you're looking at gun owners and people that have concealed carry license, statistically, we see that they are the most law-abiding citizens in America. They're very nonviolent people. In fact, they're trained to de-escalate and to get out of those problems without drawing their weapon. Because the last thing they want to do, believe it or not, the last thing gun owners and concealed carry operators want to do is pull that gun. They don't want to do that. But they carry a gun because they have the right, and our Constitution guarantees that right, and because they recognize that they would rather not need it, which is most likely, but have it, than to need it and not have it. I doubt that we're going to need the guns that we have, where we live and everything. But I also know that crazy stuff happens in neighborhoods just like this. Watch any show on 911 calls and people breaking in and killing people. It happens in the neighborhoods just like that I'm living in or that you live in, Jimmy. So it does happen, but when it comes to guns, I think guns are fine if you are responsible, if you know how to use them. And I think that, like you said earlier, Jimmy, that needs to be a last resort.
Yeah.
You don't play. It's not about being a tough guy. It's so, yeah. People have asked, because they'll see us. I'll have a sign in my office that says Smith & Wesson or something, so people will ask me about it sometimes online. I'm pro-gun. You're not a gun guy.
No, no,
but
I'm
you're
not a gun
trained.
guy.
I mean, you went to a high school with a military school.
Yeah, where they trained us in rifles.
What was your rifle, Jimmy?
Come on, man. What's up?
I just don't remember what it was. What was it?
U.S. Army 30 caliber M19er 0383 Springfield rifle. Bolt action, offensive shoulder weapon, has a rear type ramp size assembled with the bridge receiver, has military type stock, which may or may not have a pistol grip. Ammunition may be received in 5-round clips for ease of loading. Clips are inserted in its slot in the receiver.
But you should go with the pistol grip, though.
Pistol grip.
Jimmy's got that thing down.
We had to memorize it every day. They'd ask
that.
us every day. I have all this information from high school.
It's taking up space, man. You got to defrag that brain. You got to clear that stuff out of there and make room for other stuff.
They just get you. They get you on that. So then, Joe, we're talking about violence. We're talking about self-defense and Justified, which is a great show, by the way. When is self-defense not
super violent show?
I love that show.
So do I.
When is self-defense not self-defense then? Like, where do we draw the line?
I know what you're asking. Yeah, that's a good question, man. I would say it's not self-defense if you're acting out of a sense of vengeance or revenge.
Okay.
If you're like the Punisher, you know what I mean? Like, that's a new show that's going to come out on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's a comic book character. And so he's just killing all the bad guys, and specifically, we're told as Christians not to take vengeance, right?
That's right.
So we are not the state. The state bears the responsibility and has the right to carry out capital punishment if it's done righteously.
Correct.
And just for the record, guys, so I am for capital punishment in certain situations, right? I would say rape. Murder, that kind of a thing. I would have a few things I think it's for, but I don't think America knows how to do capital punishment well or rightly. So I tend to not want capital punishment here in America because we don't know what we're doing. Anyway, revenge as a motive makes it wrong. So I would say that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
I would think, secondly, like when you're not in any more real danger.
Yep.
If someone breaks into your house, you got the gun, they're started running.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You'll get
gunning them down.
You will get prosecuted. I know in Illinois you will for sure.
Oh yeah.
They can break into your house. In Illinois, if somebody breaks into my house and I've got a speed safe right by my bed, it's all locked up. Kids know how to operate these guns, but they're all locked up. I hit the code, pops out, I pull the weapon, I shoot the guy that broke into my house. I'm not going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's running out of the house
and
I shoot him in the back. Then I'm going to get in trouble.
That's right.
So they're running away. It's exactly what you're saying, Jimmy. You're not in danger, so why are you?
Yeah, danger is now, it's over.
Right.
It's over. It's done. It's been extinguished. There's no need then to in that case, like you're saying, shooting in the back, taking their life, possibly.
Right. Or even just somebody pushing you.
Yeah,
you're not in danger.
You're not
yet.
in danger.
Right,
you're like, if you're in a
away.
fight at a bar, that's not the time to
You
pull it
walk
out.
away. Take your wife, or Steve and walk away. We as Christians, we should be about nonviolence and de-escalation unless we have to protect.
Yeah.
Unless it's required of us. It's a last resort, then we've got to be willing to step into it. So I think that's really good, man. If you're not in danger, no need for violence, and revenge. Not a good motive. So you guys have been asking. Those are our basic thoughts on it. We're going to give you guys some resources to read, some classic resources and some modern ones. Even a podcast recommendation here in the show notes. So check that stuff out and let us know what you think, right?
Yeah, man. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo, or on Facebook /Doctrine and Devotion. You can head on to the website, doctrinedevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for our email blast, or you can hit up the store, grab yourself some merchandise, or register for the 2018 Doctrine and Devotion Conference on the Spirit and the Church.
Hey, going back to that merchandise.
Yep.
If they were going to get something, what would you recommend that they get from our store right now? What's hot?
What's hot? The Reformation 500
Oh,
T.
yeah,
That's what's hot. Man, it's good. It's great. We're shipping them.
It's on that black heather, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that's the terminology.
Yeah. Oh,
I just look at pictures.
Yeah. It's going to be good, guys.
It's going to be good. Get on it. Fresh pod every Monday and Thursday. Blog posts on Wednesdays. Video content on Fridays. Make sure you sign up for our email list so you can get those videos. Later. Don't shoot anyone, Joe. I just want to make sure.